We have EDC board meeting is in session for September 23rd at 6 p.m. We're going to do the invocation pledge and roll call, and the invocation is going to be done by Mr. Roger Brooks, our American flag by Brent McWaters, and our Texas flag by Chuck Thompson. Roger? Next is going to be the swearing in of our new EDC board member, Miss Tanya Clark. Come on up, Miss Tanya.
Put your left hand on the Bible. There you go. Yeah. Raise your right hand. Okay, repeat after me. In the name and by authority of the state of Texas,
In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas,
I,
I,
Tanya Clark,
Tanya Clark,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of
I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of
Cleveland Economic Development Corporation of the state of Texas,
Cleveland Economic Development Corporation of the state of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability preserve,
and to the best of my ability preserve,
protect, and defend the Constitution
protect, and defend the Constitution
and the laws of the city of Cleveland, Texas,
and the laws of the city of Cleveland, Texas,
and of the United States,
and of the United States,
and of this state,
and of this state,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Welcome.
Okay, so got a little bit out of order here, but we'll get back on track here. To the very far right, we have Mr. Mike Buckley. To his left, we have Michelle Wyatt. Then our awesome treasurer next to Michelle is Chuck Thompson. I believe he's also a fairly new board member on another board too, right, Chuck? Oh, no problem. I'm glad you helped out the mayor there and volunteered for that board. We appreciate that very
Always
much.
my pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chuck. Then obviously next to him is our one. I'm gonna wait on her. We're gonna wait on her. To the left of me is our community development director, Emilio. Our city council member and our vice president for the EDC is Brent McWaters. To the left of him, we have Heidi Souls. And then our newest member, of course, is Tanya Clark. To my right is the one and only Alice Rios, our city secretary, who this will be her last meeting with us, unfortunately. We tried getting her to stay just a few months, a few days, a few weeks. Not happening. She sits next to me on a couple of boards, and she is completely awesome. I know I said this at the skateboard dedication, but she has made it a lot easier for me. If the next person that sits in that spot can't hold up to that, her shoes, Scott will hear about it. But so I want to thank you for everything. You really do help and make this job a lot easier, for sure. And we are so going to miss you very much. We have any public comments? No public comments. What about new business spotlights, Danielle? Do we have any new business spotlights? No? All good? It's getting there. Reports and comments from our board members, number 5. Let's start with Mr. Chuck Thompson. Chuck, you got anything for us?
Let's see, based upon your recommendation the other day, I did stop by that new coffee shop or coffee trailer. I'm not sure how that falls into which category, but young lady running it has signed a year's lease to sit in that parking lot. Very good. I'd recommend anybody wants to stop by. It's right across the street from that Sunoco station. Honest to goodness, I thought it was a construction trailer, and it's right there in the middle of the parking lot. So highly suggest anybody wants. And she did give me the name, and
It's the spot.
there we go.
There you go, the spot.
So anyway, good coffee, highly recommend it. So thanks, John.
That's it?
That's
Anything
it.
else?
Sorry, didn't.
No,
know I
you're
needed
good.
to
You're
sign
good.
off officially there.
No, I thought you were going to talk about your new volunteer position.
No, I don't have enough information on that, other than it is the banking committee.
To the right of Chuck, Michelle Wyatt, what do you have for us?
First, welcome, Tanya. Thank you. Glad you're here. Thank you. Other than that, I don't have any new news other than Southside Bank. We're getting a new building. It's supposed to be open hopefully March, April. And that's really about it.
Mr. Buckley?
I want to say hello and thank you to our new member, Tanya. I'd like to thank our Public Works in our city for everything they're doing. And then also just thank y'all for the hard work at the skate park. Seeing a great turnout. It looks like the kids are already outgrown what we have out there now. So we may have to expand, and that's a good thing. You know, and I really enjoy seeing that. It's something needed for a long time, and I appreciate it. Thank y'all.
Mr. McWaters?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Mr. Buckley said. You know, going out there to that skate park, thank y'all so much for all the work that the coalition and Public Works. That's just a shining example of kind of just how, when all the departments work together, what can get done. I think that's the start of a lot of stuff like that to come. So I'm really excited about that. And yes, I think you're right, Mike. I think it is probably gonna have to talk about expansion soon. So, and welcome, Ms. Clark. Glad to have you. Glad you had you on the committee.
Thank you.
That's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Souls?
Not to copy everybody else, but the skate park grand opening was very awesome, and I know it took so much work, so really thank all of you. Also, I just wanted to say welcome, Tanya. We're really excited to have you. And Alice, we are going to miss you very much. We're going to miss you a lot. Good luck with your next adventure.
I know it's your, Ms. Clark, I know it's your first day, but you got anything for us?
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to join the committee. I would like to echo what Chuck mentioned about the little coffee trailer. Her name is Michaela, and she is really excited about being here. I'm sorry? She is really excited about being in this community. Working at Cleveland, we're looking at trying to bring her to our site once a week to kind of, encourage her business. Because of her positioning, she shared that she's really having a struggle getting people to recognize that she's there. So just maybe encourage her if you guys could stop by. But I also encourage her to, maybe decorate her trailer a little bit to draw more attention to it because it's black. You just really don't recognize it. So that was a conversation that we had in regards to that. And Miss Alice, I got to meet you at one of the mayor's meetings for breakfast, like Coffee with the Mayor. And so you were such a pleasure then. So I can imagine what it's going to be like for the city to lose you. But we're so grateful for how you've treated me since I've arrived in this city. So I wish you well in your next chapter. You're welcome.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Real quick, I want to take a second and obviously acknowledge our Honorable Danny Lee, our mayor. I appreciate you being here, Mayor. Of course, Scott Swaggert's always here, but we appreciate our city manager being here. And, of course, Roger's always here, but we really appreciate Roger Brooks being here. Thank you, Roger, very, very much. And I want to take a second and thank all our EDC board members. I feel like we are working together very cohesively, very good. We're getting things done. And so I want to thank our EDC board first and foremost. Obviously, Emilio and Danielle are great to work with. I know that people wonder how much, and I've been asked this, how much Emilio and I communicate. Rest assured, we communicate all the time. This weekend, he texted me and said, I hate to bother you on the weekend, but if you have a minute, I sure would like to talk to you. And so he has no problem communicating with us and has done an awesome job. And communication's been great. Greatly appreciate it. Obviously, I'll reiterate what everybody else has said. We want to welcome Tanya. If you don't know, she works for CISD, I think in HR.
Yes.
And we are very excited to have her on the board, for sure. Again, the skate park was awesome. That went really, really well. We have a lot more we're still doing out there. I think Roger's got some pieces on order that we need to replace already on some of the boards or whatever you want to call them. And I know that was mentioned out there a few times. Just to settle that, it's already on order, and Roger's ahead of the game, ready to get them put on as soon as we get them in. The shop local that we did with the chamber has went really well. You didn't have to go too far in this town to see the signs inside businesses. I think that shows our support with the chamber and the chamber's support with EDC and the city, and us all three working together. I believe that's what we should expect for the outcome, is that right there. And advertising, obviously, shopping local you can't get much better than that. I want to thank Brian Garcia. Brian Garcia is the incoming chair for the chamber. He has been very supportive of the EDC and has also went out of his way to invite myself and Emilio to several different events. And I think they plan on having someone here pretty much for every meeting. They're just trying to right now they have a lot going on between the outgoing chair and incoming chair. Obviously, we have a chamber board member, Heidi, that sits on our EDC also. But I think that us working with the chamber is a very important fact in this city that we need to continue doing. I get asked questions about the airport, obviously, and it is going great. I think the airport's going better than it probably ever has for the city, literally. This is the first time, if you don't know it, that the city has ever ran the airport themselves in the entire history of the airport. Took it over in January, and since January, it's done very, very well, better than it's ever done. We got jet fuel in the last few months, and we are selling more and more jet fuel every month. We have meetings on it once a month, and on directions on which way to go to advertise it, to get a little bit more publicity, people seeing the jet fuel. And so far, I feel like what we've done's worked. Wouldn't you agree, Scott? And it just keeps getting better. Our avgas sales have went up like crazy. That has been our home run. Again, that's something we also meet on once a month on prices and being competitive, and it's treating it like a business, pure and simple. You got to treat it like a business at the airport, period. And it's done really, really well all the way around at the airport. I encourage anybody to go out there and, watch planes come in and land. They're busy out there all the time. There's plenty of things to go out there and watch. The rebranding and the wayfinding, we've already had, I think, a couple of meetings on it. So it sounds like it's gotten going and is right on track. And again, kind of what Brent mentioned and I mentioned at the skate park, communication and working together with all of the entities is what creates success. And I think we're definitely on track with that for sure, especially from the EDC. Anything else? Director's report.
Thank you, sir. Next slide, please. I don't want to belabor any more dialogue on the skate park, but again, job well done. Thank you to Danielle and Cody and Roger. They put in a lot of hard work on that, so we appreciate that. And you'll see some pictures here in a minute for those who weren't able to attend, but really came out great. Now that that's over, that's going to allow our crew some time to focus on the playground at Old City Park, looking at doing an October dedication, ribbon cutting, hopefully, around the corner. As you kind of can maybe get a sense for, the council chamber AV update has been complete. Still working and fine-tuning some things on the audio, but really it's more operator, kind of muscle memory that you have to keep in mind in terms of being close to the microphone.
Choosing his words very carefully.
Yeah. Sorry, not the user. There you go. User muscle memory that we need to keep in mind in terms of our location and distance to microphones. So if your cooperation is appreciated on that end. Library fencing should commence here shortly. We had some things that we're working on in the background, but we've resolved those, and we cut the contractor loose, and so materials will be ordered, and things will commence there, hopefully very soon. But the goal is to have that complete within this month. So, next slide. The gateway and wayfinding signage master plan that has kind of not been put on hold, but is just kind of in the background, allowing for some time for the rebranding process to catch up and develop further. As you know, the graphics component to that could play a big role in that. But our consultants are still refining some of the feedback and things from our initial August advisory committee for that group. And so the rebranding will definitely hopefully keep pace with that. On that note, we did meet last week, 9/13, for the project kickoff meeting with the rebranding advisory committee, and I'll be providing that presentation to the board for their reference and review as well. We did get some preliminary research back from one of the firms, and I'll email that to the board as well, on some grant opportunities for sidewalks and pedestrian connectivity. We'll need to further refine that list. There's a lot of opportunities there, but in terms of getting solid proposals and estimates on cost, we'll have to weed out some of those other opportunities and focus on some other major ones. Some training opportunities coming up. If you could please confirm your attendance. If you'd like to attend the TDC annual conference, reach out to Danielle and I so we can secure your reservations for that and book the training. Some local opportunities in November. Houston TDC will be doing a sales tax workshop. They'll also be offering that virtually at the beginning of December. And then if you can please let us know about your chamber luncheon reservations. I assume our usual suspects will be there, but if anyone else would like to join, we will figure that out. But here's some of the imagery from the skate park dedication. It was a great event, already being put to great use. Also wanted to share some pictures of some things on the development services side, some activity there at Tri-County. I believe it's Liberty Street. So they're progressing along, and it's going to be a great project. But I think that's all I have.
Does anybody have any questions for?
One more thing, sorry.
One more thing.
Off the thing. We've been looking to schedule some headshots for EDC, coincide that with some council headshots, hopefully in November or December. I know some have been asking. That's been putting behind the production of some EDC pamphlets, so we can update those headshots. But that's really the something that's lingering that we need to address. But we're trying to coincide that with council and their availability.
Any questions for Emilio at all? By the way, the headshot, that is part of the, Danielle's been really hard at that, trying to coordinate city council and EDC at the same time, to where we can do it all at the same time. And I'm sure trying to do that's its own task. And I know that that's a very common question for me, is the pamphlets that we created, and so that's what we're trying to get done. Any questions at all for Emilio? The chamber beans, did you have a thing on Emilio? Or Heidi, I'm sorry.
I kind of spoke with Emilio about it at the skate park grand opening, but I just wanted to let you guys know I may have voluntold us, voluntelling us now. In November, the chamber's having their first responder law enforcement luncheon, and they needed somebody to provide and serve baked beans. So I was like, well, if not the EDC, I'd get somebody else, but I really prefer if the EDC, if we could, do that for them. So.
Emilio just said that he had volunteered to do it for the EDC. Wow. Thank you, Emilio. That's awesome.
Way to show our support. I know it's not necessarily economic development, but we are, a city entity, so just a way to give back.
No, I don't think anybody would have a problem with that. That's absolutely.
You have to wear a hairnet.
hairnet and an apron. And we get to buy your apron. Anything else on director's report? Nope, all good. Consent agenda. All consent agenda items are considered routine by EDC board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a board member requests an item to be removed and considered separately. So we have number 7 is the meeting minutes from August 26, 2024, and number 8 is the monthly financial statement. Has everybody had a chance to go over that?
Mr. Chair, if I may, Mr. President, the minutes for the August meeting are not prepared at this time, so we'll need to take that under consideration at the next month's meeting.
That'll work. So then all we're going to have is the monthly financial statement. Anybody had a chance to look at it? I've looked at it a couple of times. Everybody good with it? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the monthly financial statement and table number 7 meeting minutes till
October.
October's meeting.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Brent McWaters and a second to approve the monthly financial statement and to table the meeting minutes from August 26th, 2024 until the October meeting. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Discussion and possible consideration on the following. Number 9 is going to be discussion presentation from Blue Group International and Atlas concerning their proposed investment and development of a metal recycling facility project in Cleveland and possible incentive options to support their selection of Cleveland as a site project. This is something I think everybody is very well aware of. Emilio and I and several others have been working on this continuously, reluctantly, any which way we can figure out how to communicate with Scott Lambert. So, who's up for this presentation?
We'll have Mr. Lambert do a presentation. His colleagues cannot be here to this evening, but we're going to get some slides up, and he'll walk us through some of the presentation.
Good deal.
Okay, my name's Scott Lambert. I live at, if I'm supposed to give my address, 1652 County Road, 2274, Cleveland, Texas, 77327. I am actually in the real estate development business. My company's Mission Realty in that. Today I represent Geoterra Consulting, and then we have the Blue Group, which is Mustafa Akler's company, which he would be here speaking, but he was with the owner of Atlas at 4 o'clock this afternoon down in Richmond, so trying to get from Richmond to here. I couldn't even get home to go change because of the bridge work down here, because the time just wouldn't let me go change, so I apologize for that. But so the Atlas Group is a large company, if you want to throw it up there. They have contracts of somewhere around $2 billion all over the world, actually. They are also partners of consortium. Mr. Eunice's wife actually runs Broadway Construction, who will be doing the construction of this site. They have revenue of $850 million. So it's a large company that can do a lot of things here in this town. But they chose to start with the recycling plant, and it is going to be in 2 phases. It employ about 200 people, and we will be going through the workforce here in Liberty to hire a lot of those. The major employees that we have, maybe not the white collar, but the blue collar, will have to work within 15, 20 minutes of the site, which is a bonus for Cleveland. So the investment is a large number. It will be, and we've discussed this with John and Emilio and Chuck and Heidi and some of the other ones that I've visited with over the last couple weeks. We have put together a package that we've worked back and forth with the city on an incentive package. So basically what we're here is to see if we can just get I guess a blessing of y'all's to buy the land from the EDC, and we ask for reimbursement based on the incentive package. So that's what I'm here for, just to get y'all's blessing. I know y'all have to have the city council to approve that, so I'm asking for y'all's blessing today for that. If y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
I think everybody's pretty familiar with it, but does anybody have any questions for Mr. Lambert? No?
I know that's kind of a short deal, but this is a public forum on kind of a private matter, but so y'all can always call me if you have any questions, or you can ask me now. So.
Scott, Ms. Clark, this is obviously her first meeting, so she hasn't had much exposure. Can you just tell her in general terms what type of facility and project?
Okay, so it basically it's a recycling. We're going to start with aluminum right out of the chute, and there's some pictures of the plant itself. What we'll do is we'll take aluminum, create billets, and basically we can make up to 60,000 different, like for example, the framing of a solar panel, the metal solar, those are aluminum. Some of them are anodized, some of them aren't, but we can do that process. So when it comes from a billet into the shapes, there's 60,000 shapes that we can create, and so it's pretty much unlimited on what we can do.
Thank you.
It'll create about 200 jobs or more. I'm hoping more.
And we're going to have a executive session on this here after a little bit, number 16, so we can kind of go over it a little bit more. Anything else for Mr. Lambert? Everybody good? Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Number 10. Number 10 is authorizing the chair to execute an agreement with the city of Cleveland providing for the annexation of EDC-owned real property. So basically, this is y'all authorizing me to handle the annexation of the property that
Yep.
EDC owns.
Just to add a little more color, so this is an annexation statute. There's voluntary annexation, and that can come in the form of a petition or by agreement. And so this is referencing a Chapter 212 agreement between the city and the EDC as a private, I guess, government nonprofit, but still a private entity. So Mr. Williams, as the EDC president, would be able to execute this agreement. And it's just a cleaner and more judicious way to expedite the annexation of our real property holdings.
Just to add something else to that, the city has been in a position in the past where they sold a piece of property, and I think it was 5 acres. It was 5 acres. Yeah, 5, I think. And we have the property wrapped all the way around it, literally between the city of Cleveland and EDC owns the property wrapped around it. And for whatever reason in the past, that property was never annexed, that got sold. So the city makes 0 on it. And I think the purpose of this, obviously, is to make sure that that never happens again, obviously. And so what they're wanting to do is annex the rest of the EDC property. And that way in the future, it can't happen again. When all of us are long gone and not on this board, we will make sure that the city gets their share no matter what, if that makes sense. Anybody have a motion for number 10?
I make the motion.
Got a motion by Mr. Mike Buckley.
I second that motion.
And I have a second by Heidi Souls to authorize the chair to execute an agreement with the city of Cleveland, providing for the annexation of the EDC-owned property. All in favor? None opposed? Unanimous? Any questions on number 10 at all, by the way? No? Everybody's good? Number 11, consider a proposed amendment of the approved 24 and 25 fiscal year budget and projects list. The nature of the proposed project is the sale and transfer of EDC on real property through an incentive program to promote primary job creation and industrial development in Cleveland. Emilio?
Is it on now? Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Over the weekend, I just discussed this item with our city attorney, Tommy Ramsey, and I think we got a little too ahead of ourselves, just, I guess, in kind of excitement for this project and wanting to expedite things. However, in Tommy's research and further clarification, we don't need to take action at this moment. We could take action, and we will take action, rather, at the special meeting when all the other documents are prepared. It would be a much cleaner thing. In Tommy's view, doing this right now, as it's worded, would essentially just create more things to clean up later. So with that advice of counsel, and he couldn't be here today. He has another city that he reps. And
So
their
basically
meetings
we
at the
need to
same time,
table it?
but yeah. Well, I would just take no action and let it die. If we table it, it's on the table still.
Oh, okay. Anybody have any questions on it? Nope. Everybody good? So number 12 is discussion and presentation concerning the usage of sales and use tax special revenue funds for type B EDCs. Emilio's gonna take that for us. Oh, Scott is. Scott and Emilio? Scott is. Scott's like, well, am I or not?
Hey, he's more than welcome to do it. I mean, I'll sit back down.
I saw you going, oh, is he coming up or not coming up?
Yes, ma'am. All right. At the last council meeting, or at the last EDC meeting, it was requested that we kind of go over some of the sales tax, use and sales tax items, just for some clarification and be able to answer and talk about it a little bit more for y'all's a better understanding along what we currently have, what we can do, what we can't do, some of the regulations, because it has been talked about recently in the past, and so just to have a better understanding and clarification on that. And so first off, I just want to kind of give you kind of the breakdown. And so the current sales tax that we have in Cleveland is 8 1/4. That's the most that you can do, that you're allowed by the state to have. And of course, the state itself takes 6 1/4% of the sales tax. So that leaves 2% for your local entities to be able to utilize for that. And so not every city, not every place that you go shopping is at 8 1/4. Sometimes it's less, but it will not be more in the state of Texas. And so the state's portion, as you can see there, is about 76% of the sales tax collected. Then the city, we have 1 1/4% that goes to our general fund. Okay, and so you'll see there on the left, that's kind of broken down. 1% of it goes to general revenue, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then 1/4 of that percent goes towards property tax relief, but that goes towards our general fund calculation. And then you'll see just below that is 6%. Well, that's Liberty County, so they take 0.5%. It goes to Liberty County, so they've claimed that. And then the very last piece of that, that 1/4% that's still available, of course, is the economic development. And that's where you receive your funding each year from that sales tax that's collected. And so that's kind of the overall breakdown of how that is divided, how we currently use the sales tax here in Cleveland. And so the next slide there, you'll see that, again, just kind of a recap, but kind of clarifying that 1% of it goes to general revenue. This is the increase in revenue for our maintenance and operation. Again, the city operates with basically two sides. We got the M&O, maintenance and operation side, and you got your debt service side. Okay, and so our maintenance and operation is what we use on a daily basis to operate the city. This 1% goes to that M&O. It increases the revenue on the M&O side. Below that, you see is a 1/4%, that's property tax relief. What this does is it actually takes away from the M&O tax and takes that burden away from and replaces the property tax. And so when you calculate your tax rate, which our current tax rate for property taxes in the city is 77 cents, whatever that 77 cents would generate, then you would take off that 1/4%, and that reduces that 77 cents for your taxpayers in there. So it's a replacement for the revenue for M&O, whereas the 1% increases your operation. So it's both of it goes towards general fund, but the use of that is very interesting. Of course, when the council and the staff are trying to figure out where that tax rate is every year and what we're going to top the budget, this is part of the reason why it gets so complicated, because you're trying to figure out what's the M&O, what's the the debt service, and then also how much is that sales tax contribution that you've got, because you have to use your sales tax, and how that reduces the actual property taxes that you're collecting. Okay, and then the last portion of which is the same amount. We get the same amount for property tax relief as we do for EDC, and that, of course, comes here for y'all to be able to utilize for all the different projects and programs that y'all are authorized to do underneath that. And, of course, like we said, the last 0.5% of the full 2% that we utilize is utilized by Liberty County themselves. Okay, so what can a city impose a city sales and use tax for? So according to TML, House Bill 157, a city may hold an election to oppose a general revenue sales and use tax, or we can hold an election to impose a dedicated sales and use tax. Okay, and so those are the two things that you can do. Either it's going to be a dedicated sales and use, or it's going to be the general revenue. We kind of talked about the general revenue earlier. And then there's two criteria. The rate can only be in increments of at least 1/8 of 1%. And your total cannot be more than 2% for the whole local area, the calculation. And so we currently, like I said earlier, Cleveland uses some, a 1.5, and then the county uses a half of that too. Some have fire districts, some have, you have MUDs that use some of that. So there's different government entities, hospital districts, they can all utilize some of that sales tax, but the local can only be 2. And so with us, it's, 1.5 is for us, and then half of it is for the county. Now there's some cities that use the full 2%. And their county or nobody else uses anything. So it just kind of depends on who grabs it first. And, of course, ours is grabbed, so it's fully committed at this point. Okay. When you get into then you're going to there we go. When you get into the dedicated sales tax, you can get, these are the kind of list of the things that are authorized to be used for. So sports and venue districts, which we don't have any, but this is, can be utilized for different major complexes, sporting complexes, and different things like that. They'll utilize that sports and venue districts. major convention centers, major convention districts, they can utilize this for that kind of venue. You can set up a crime and control prevention district. Of course, then you see the Economic Development Corporation, both Type A and Type B. Of course, we are Economic Development Corporation, so we're utilizing that, and we're the Type B. And then you have property tax relief, which we're using. You can also do street maintenance, and you can use it for a municipal development district, okay? The rate, again, can be increments of at least 1/8 of 1%, and the combined rate cannot exceed the maximum of 2%, again, for the full amount. Before House Bill 158 was created, you can see that the authorization came for city to use the sales tax back in 1967. At that time, cities could only do the general revenue. It was kind of a 1% was it. If you adopted it, it was no more, no less. It was 1%. Of course, that's when Cleveland adopted it, was during that time frame, which is the reason why we have exactly 1%. You'll see that that has changed, but back in originally when it was set up, it was done at 1%, and then the rest of it could be used for a dedicated sales tax, and it had to be at certain increments as well. But House Bill 157 now allows you to maneuver that, okay? So you can change the percentages based on your need, and so it may be that you need more or less for the general revenue. Now, any change requires a vote of the citizens. It can't be done by council, it can't be done by EDC. You have to actually take the petition to the council, or to the election, and it has to be voted on by your citizens, okay? And then, so this kind of goes back into that, again, 1% is general revenue. The remaining portion can be used for any of the items. Of course, we use it for EDC and property tax relief. Before House Bill 158, again, the sales tax were capped at certain amounts, and so we talked about the general revenue was capped at 1%. It could not be any more or any less than that 1%. Then you had economic development. When it was created, when ours was created, it cannot exceed 0.5%, okay? And then at the same time, they had street maintenance, and it could not be more than 0.25%. So there was caps. 157, again, removed all those caps, but when they were set up, that's how that was initially done. And so that was now removed, and so now it gives you the choice, how do you want to play with it? But it requires an election to increase it or decrease it. Now, 157, when they passed it, it did allow you to have a single ballot for moving stuff from dedicated sales tax. So if you wanted to go from property tax to EDC, or EDC to street, or street maintenance to MDD, if it was a dedicated fund, you could have one ballot and could do it. You'll see that that has now changed as well, and we'll go over that in a minute. But that removed it to where you could have the dedicated tax, where you could have an election for just those one. So what is general revenue? General revenue is tax that may be levied by a city on taxable items sold in the city. The revenue from the city may be spent on almost any lawful purpose of the city. A city is authorized to hold an election to impose the general tax of anything. Again, it's got to be in increments of 1/8 of 1%, and it cannot be more than 2% total for your local. A city with an existing 1%, which is us, may now order an election to increase or decrease that tax rate. Again, assuming that you have the room, and if you don't, that means you're going to have to decrease something. Okay, so we've used the full 2, so we can't just increase it. We'd have to decrease something else, or you'd have to convince the county to give up some of theirs to make us room for us to be able to have it, to be able to do that. And again, the dedicated purpose, these are taxes may only be spent on certain dedicated items. So this is more restrictive, and it's only for those purposes. But you can do a mix of any of those. So you can have a sports venue, you can have a crime control, you can have EDC, property tax relief, which we both have both of those. But you can do the street maintenance or the MDD, the Municipal Development District, and we'll go into the Municipal Development District here in a minute as well. But again, as you can see on the bottom of there, that a city can hold an election to dedicate sales tax in any increment of 1/8 of 1% of any of these. So again, you have the flexibility, but you have to have the actual citizens have to vote on that. And if you can do it in one ballot, that's even better, because if it fails, then it just stays where it's at. So here's where it kind of gets complicated. Okay, so House Bill 3046, which happened after was it 50? Yeah, 157. House Bill 3046 authorized the city to hold an election to repeal or lower one city sales tax and raise or adopt a different sales tax, all with one combined ballot proposition. Prior to that, again, we talked about you had to have two different ballots, okay? Now you can have one ballot. However, if the city chooses to hold an election or lower one sales tax to raise one and more than the sales taxes, because we are maxed out, we can only use a combined ballot. So we have the general revenue, we have the EDC, and we have the property tax relief. Okay, but there is still available sports and venue, crime control prevention, street maintenance, and municipal development district. And again, if the ballot fails, then it just goes back to the other. Switching from economic development to municipal development district. And so this has also come up recently. What about switching it to the municipal development district? One, a municipal development district is very close to what you are today. The type B EDC property, the sales tax fund. The big difference is the boundaries, okay? EDC, you've got your city limits is basically your boundaries. With the MDD, it can be a portion of the city, or it can be as big as part of your ETJ and include your ETJ, which your EDC cannot do, okay? And so that's really the only difference between the two. The uses are the same, it's just how you can collect the money, okay? So you can switch from a EDC to a MDD, but there is some caution that the TML provides. And basically, the caution is because they can have different boundaries, okay? And that's where it gets complicated, that if you're just going to do a switch from EDC to an MDD, but you're going to keep the boundaries same, there's really no reason to switch. So that means you're going to be doing something different. Now, you can do an EDC and an MDD. You can have both, okay? But that may require you to reduce your EDC. For us, it would require us to reduce the footprint of the EDC so that you could replace that piece of it with the MDD. Or you could lower your EDC portion and then could add the MDD, and then the MDD could also go into your ETJ. Again, very, very complicated, potentially, okay? The problem is, and where TML kind of really cautions you, is if you're going out to a vote to do the switch, is that you almost have to do two elections, okay? You can't do it on one ballot. You can, we're authorized, but what they have found out, I think it's the next slide, what you find out is that if it's different, then what you can run into is that you could have the people in the city limits voting to create a tax on people that live outside the city limits, which is not fair because then it's not representation on the taxation. Or you could have people that are in the MDD or the ETJ that can now vote to add or eliminate taxes in the city, which they never had the authority to vote on that or to be a part of that. So here they don't have that representation, but they're voting on it. So having a single ballot, you get people voting on either side of the scenario that you can see here that at least one case TML has shown that the comptroller has said, nope, we're going to throw that out. We're not going to honor that vote because of this situation where you had different people voting that weren't represented and it wasn't fair, and they made them go back out and do a double vote. So yes, you can. It's been done. It's also been stopped and sent back to redo it again because it was done differently. Okay. And so it can, but it's, so you almost have to have a total ballot, which then you run into the risk of, okay, so if we have a ballot measure to eliminate the EDC and that passes, and we have a ballot for the MDD and it fails, and you got two separate votes, what happens? You have nothing, right? Okay. So that could be a worst case scenario. If you do it in one, the comptroller could say, nope, that ain't going to happen. Okay. And then another thing to just keep in mind, thanks to our wonderful legislature this last session and their new de-annexation criteria for the ETJs, right now, as of January, when the legislation was approved, those that are in our ETJ can just request to be de-annexed, petition to be de-annexed from our ETJ, and the cities cannot stop that de-annexation. Okay? And so now this legislation is already in the courts. There's cases that are being filed saying that that's unconstitutional to try to get that appealed and get that stopped. There's also lots of groups and lots of cities that are trying to get legislation changed as we go back into session in January to try to get this corrected, okay? And so things may change, but for right now, all you got to do is basically a petition to be removed from the ETJ, and there's nothing a city can do. So if you were to try to change this from an EDC to an MDD, there is a possibility that before you ever got to the election, that all those property owners that are in the ETJ that could be doing sales tax collection, basically your businesses, they could all be requested to be out of your ETJ and then de-annexed from your ETJ before you ever did it. And now you're right back to basically the exact same thing you're doing right now with ETJ. So right now is not a good time for this. Now maybe a year or two, maybe, and I think it's a good deal. I think that's the benefit of the MDD is you are able to do some stuff out in your ETJ, and so we all know that we're going to be growing and expanding as we do so. We're getting them to participate and having them benefit, because anything that we're doing in Cleveland with this funding and these projects is benefiting our ETJ as well. So they're benefiting from the projects and things that we're doing, but they're not contributing, and so this would be a way that they would be able to participate as well. And so, again, I think it's a positive thing for that. Okay. Now, one of the things that when you're dealing with TML, I'm going to just let y'all know the same thing, that whenever you talk to them about changes, the first thing they always do is say, consult with your city attorney. Okay. Especially when it comes to stuff like this. So if this is something that you want to look at further at this time or maybe in the future, one of the things that we definitely need to do is we'll need to bring in our city attorney and be able to answer questions, talk to it, do some research, because again, it's very complicated. When you start moving with the different mechanisms and different things, you can make different changes, and it impacts you different ways. And so having the attorney look at, well, this law says this, and this is how you can clarify, or maybe shouldn't do that, or there's case laws for this, or as we've seen with the comptroller, things have been changed. So, it's something that we definitely need to get with and talk with, okay? Another thing that I would ask for your consideration is this is something you want to look at now or in the future. That one is that request it to be an item placed on the agenda, okay? So that everybody here has the opportunity to discuss it, talk about it, come to a good understanding of exactly what it means and what the the pros, the cons, and all that, really look into that. Have an opportunity to invite the city attorney to be able to be a part of those discussions and maybe bring back some clarification if we need to. And then if it's something that the board wants to really say, nope, this is something we really want to look at, really want to consider, then I'd almost say, let's do a joint meeting with the city council. After we have that recommendation, bring the council and the EDC together, bring the attorney on board, have those discussions about this is something that we're looking at doing. Here's some of the pros, the cons, the benefits. Get everybody on the same page. We've already had several comments tonight about how everybody's working together, we're getting things done, right? And it's working together, working as a unified team with the same goal. And that's kind of what this would do, is get everybody on the same level playing field and get everybody understanding, showing for the same goal. And so, and that's kind of what it takes. It's not a quick process. It takes a long time, right? And then you got to get it on the ballot, which there's a deadline usually for that. For us, it's usually sometime in February to get it on the May ballot. For us, that's when we have our city elections is in May, so that's when you would typically try to do it. And then when you go to write the language to go on the ballot, that's all got to be approved by the general attorney. They've got to authorize and approve your language, make sure that it's fair, and correct. And so there's a lot of things that has to go in play to actually get this done. But anyway, that's kind of, again, it's a high level, but it can get very complicated. It can get very detailed. It can get confusing, but there is options out there. Is this the right time? I don't know. That's something we have to look at. And again, there's some things that we're already maxing out to 2% locally, and so there's going to have to be some give and take if we do anything. It's not like we can go out and get some additional. Okay, we don't have any more room. We're at the full max, and so something's going to have to give. We can move that around. You could give up, some, EDC to increase the general revenue, but is that a good idea? That's something that would have to be discussed again by this group and the council as well. Is that really the best thing for the city, to do that? Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's to take some general fund and move it more towards EDC or street maintenance. We all know we need street maintenance, right? So that could be an opportunity. So there's things that we can be and looked at, but anyway, that's kind of that big picture overview. So with that, is there any questions?
Yeah,
or?
I've got a couple here, Scott, for you. The just a little bit of clarification, if you don't mind. One is there's been a lot of conversations about this needing to go to the citizens for an election. And correct me if I'm wrong. When the EDC is created, that is created by an election by the citizens
Correct.
of that municipality, correct?
Correct.
So creating the EDC has already went to the citizens and had a vote to create the EDC. That's the only way we had to have, that's the only way the EDC exists, correct? And then on top of that, if there was a change and EDC agreed for it to be a change, then it would, and it is a question, but correct me if I'm wrong here, but then it would still have to go to city council and get an approval from city council before it ever went on a ballot.
Correct.
So not one person can just say, hey, we're going to go put this on a ballot and we're going to get it voted on.
No.
It's got to go through EDC, city council. City council has to approve it going on the ballot with their majority of a vote.
Correct.
Correct? And again, the EDC was created to begin with by the citizens on an election.
And it doesn't have to come from the EDC.
Correct.
That is one way. I mean, the council themselves could say, hey, we want to look into this. The council could request that the EDC look into it and bring it back to them. They could just say, we want to look into it and see what some of the different options are. So it doesn't have to be started from the EDC, because y'all are just one piece of the puzzle. And again, like we talked about earlier, when that was created, there was limitations. When the city adopted the general fund at 1%, that was all you could do. When EDC was created back then, it was maxed out at that 0.5%, okay? So it can go more now, but at that time, it was maxed out at that 0.5%.
But no matter how it would be created to go to a public election, the only way it's going to get to a public election is through the city council, correct?
Well, for the most part.
Yeah, unless you go to citizens and get,
Correct. The only other way, I
250,
mean, the
yeah.
city council would be able to do it, or if you had a petition that was done and you had enough signatures generated
right.
to get a position on the ballot, then it could go to the citizens for a vote based on the petitions.
Yeah.
And I can't remember exactly, I want to say it's like 250 signatures of
I think it's,
citizens
yeah, over two,
that has to be
voting
approved
citizens,
and
yeah.
signed, or a certain percentage of the past election.
So essentially, you'd still have to have,
But
basically.
you still have to, I mean, you'd either have to have a petition generated by the citizens, they could put anything on the ballot.
Well, of course,
So this
yeah.
could be part of it, or it goes through the city council for approval to put on the ballot, yes, sir.
Any other questions? Brent?
Not a question, just a overall comment. I think it's just important to note, because there has been some questions raised. You know, when you think of what are we up here all talking about and wanting to work toward and working with our council, working with our various leaders across the city to truly, we have an opportunity. You know, and I think that we're finally getting some alignment to realize that opportunity, because a lot of the things that we're working to do with these funds, I think we're on the cusp of realizing a lot of it for the first time. And I think that because the goal here is to promote and increase the economic health of our area, of our city, of our citizens, of our businesses. And we are in a unique position because we have that percentage that comes in to allow us to work on that and that be our sole purpose. So I think that is an important thing, and that we're working, and there wouldn't be a lot of the things that we're talking about even tonight without that. We're in a little bit of a catch-up mode. That's why all of us that have worked on the budget for our EDC, we're using some of that we've had, that we've just, quite frankly, not used in years past. And that's being caught up. So anyway, I'm excited about where we're at. I'm excited about how we're progressing and going forward to increase the stability, increase the economic health, which again, we want to fix these problems in perpetuity and not just Band-Aid and patch, and that's not gonna get us through the next 10, 20, 50 years.
Anything else, Mike?
Yeah, I just had, I had a quick question. I know this stuff was brought up because of the county not taking care of their part of our emergency services. Now, I did see where it said something for the, more like the police department, but it doesn't really overall affect the emergency services, does it?
Well, there is the prevention, you know, the crime prevention.
And that's what I'm saying. It's more
Right.
crime prevention,
Crime
instead of-
control and prevention districts.
So
but-
it doesn't help the fire department out.
And your general fund could, but again, where are you gonna get that money from?
That's
And it has to be voted on, you know, and does that mean that if you reduce, I mean, one of them is the property tax relief. I don't know that you'll ever get that to be able to be reduced, the amount that goes towards that. But the other is the EDC. So if you were to reduce it, there's no guarantee that that money that you give up and give back to the general fund would go strictly to just police and fire. And it may do that for a year or two, or while you're sitting here, while the council sits in that position. But 5 years from now, when it could be a change, we all could be changed at that point, where that money's gonna be going to. It'd just be going to general and not necessarily dedicated or pin marked for any specific use.
And then also, anybody in that new MDD, they could pull themselves out of it, so they're not contributing any funds at all. So it's all right back on the citizens of the city.
Correct. Right now, they could.
So
That's right now.
that's what I wanted to clarify, because the way it was being brought out that all that money could be dedicated to one specific thing, and in reality, it can't be. And then the people that's going to be helping out, they can pull out of that system and not fund any at all, and it's still on the backs of the city residents at the end of the day.
And the good news, just to follow up on that, is the county is voting on their budget tomorrow.
So that's good.
Tomorrow morning.
Hopefully
We
it works
received
out.
the agreement Friday afternoon from the county, and at this point, there is $200,000 in the county's budget for Cleveland to help with that issue. And the agreement that we received Friday afternoon has the $200,000 in it as well. It's a long ways from the 600 that we need, but it's a whole lot more than what we got this year, which was 0. So we're heading in the right direction. And so, but just an update on what you were talking about. That was a major concern. It has been a major concern for the city for the last several years. But that is moving forward as well.
Now, I just wanted clarifications, because I know the whole reason why this was brought up was because they thought it could be used as relief for emergency services. In reality, it's not going to be. And then anybody that is helping out in those areas, they can withdraw from this MDD, and then it's still back on the residents of the city of Cleveland. Right. The people in the county are not going to be paying their fair share. Right. So
And
that's what I wanted to clarify.
Right, and it's another thing, like we talked about earlier, the city has to look over what's the best use of the different options, the general fund, the debt service, looks at the whole big picture and what's the best option, okay? And if we were to increase the general revenue from the sales tax, is that the best option to pay for the county's debt that they have for us? Is that really the best use of those funds, is to take care of a debt that the county has to us? Again, that's one of those things that you gotta look at.
And then in the next 2 to 5 years, how much more is that going to be with the population growth?
Right.
Is that fund even going to be able to help out or put a dent into it?
As we continue to grow, that number is gonna continue to grow as well.
Correct.
You know,
Yeah, because I think at the end of the day, I think the way we all need to be looking at this is, if this board does its job, then the general fund will have more money. Because we're going to be bringing the industry, bringing the jobs, we're going to be increasing the dollars for the city to help with all these different, with our police, with our fire, with the public works, with
well,
everything.
you're currently doing a lot of things right now. You've already talked about the rebranding, you talked about the gateway and wayfinding signage. You've got different studies that you've budgeted for this next year to help give us direction and help us to go out and recruit new businesses. We've talked to a business today that's wanting to come in here that we're trying to work with to bring in. You know, we just received a $30 million stuff from the Texas Water Development Board to help with our infrastructure. So that'll help us with economic development. And so utilizing the money that you have to do your part of what you can do to help bring in more business and economic development, partner with the city, again, everybody working together. They're doing the $30 million in infrastructure. Now we're going to be able to get water and sewer to places that we don't have currently in the health areas that we need. We're going to be able to expand those pipes, make them larger, so we have more capacity, more capability, and help us with that opportunity for growth. The city's doing what they can with what they have. Y'all take y'all's revenue and y'all's portion and do things that you can do on your piece of it. But all of us working together, because we know what the common goal is, but if we're all working together as these different pieces, then we can be successful. And I'm really hoping that, we've got a business that we talked to tonight that we're going to be successful with, right? But it's all of them working together. The council working together, EDC working together, industry working together, everybody working together to get that unified goal, to get this across that finish line for success. The more of these that we have, with the mayor saying earlier tonight, it's a win for Cleveland, right? The skate park was a win for us. Well, this will be another win that we can put on our books.
And I think right now we're having a lot of those wins, and I think the main reason we're having a lot of those wins is because we are all working together. We have all of that going. That's you. It's Emilio. We give Emilio credit. Like the skateboards.
Thank you.
Skateboards.
I do have one thing I want to go back to.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Number
Mike.
11 real quick. That is not going to affect what we got working on right now with the other. I just wanted clarification before.
No, sir.
Okay.
You'll be
Oh.
able to take that up at a special meeting
Okay.
with the city council.
Yeah, it's gonna be the opposite, but yeah. Yep. You're good, you're good. Any other questions on, discussion, presentation? Number 12 on,
Thank you.
yes, thank you very much, Scott. That was something that we were all wanting, obviously, and we appreciate it very much. Did you have something, Chuck, that you were gonna ask?
Well, there was just.
And I apologize if I cut you off, sir.
No, you're fine. There were a couple of things that Scott pointed out that seems to be a potential red flag to me. The fact that we're already maxing our cap, which means, there's going to have to be some give and take there. The other thing, it seemed like that automatic de-annexation, or I shouldn't say automatic, the potential de-annexation could come back to hurt also. And then, if I understood Scott correctly, there's the potential that if it is framed right in the election, that neither one of the entities could exist. Is that correct?
Correct, and that's one of the things that's only if you're going from an EDC to an MDD, okay, which has been part of the discussion because those are basically the same function. The only difference is the boundaries. And so, again, we're capped out, we're locked in. So the only thing that you can get additional revenue would be to then extend to your ETJ. If you're going to do that, then you have to have two ballot positions. One for those citizens that voted on the EDC to do away with the EDC or to reduce that EDC, however you want to do it. And then you have to have another ballot that would include all of Cleveland plus the ETJ, if that's what you wanted to do, to get either to replace the EDC or to take up what you gave up over here. So that's two ballot measures. You could get into a situation where they vote, and it could be a positive thing, they vote to eliminate the EDC or reduce the EDC in hopes of getting the MDD passed, but then this could fail because now you got more people voting on this side because now you got the people that are in the ETJ voting as well, and you may just have people that say, no, I'm voting against this and I'm voting against this. And those people end up saying, all right, so this fails too, so now you just voted yourself to eliminate, and then here's the catch here is, again, you're maxed out at 2%. You're not the only ones that can take it. You could have somebody else step up before the city does and take that money for their purpose and get an election passed, and then you don't have it at all, and you can't go back for it for anything else either because it's already tied up with somebody else.
Right. Yeah, no, I
mean,
thought I
it's a
understood you.
risk.
Yeah, I thought I understood you correctly. It just, those were three red flags that I thought could create a really bad headache if it turned out, as Scott's talking about, all of a sudden we have neither entity.
And we would have to obviously create this as an agenda item for EDC, and I guess we could have a consensus, but I haven't been told anybody wants this as an agenda item, correct? No? Nope. Nope, nope, nope. Okay, number 13. That's a discussion concerning overhaul of the facade grant, or facade improvement program into businesses. That's Emilio.
Yes, so we discussed this previously and talked through a lot of the mechanics of it. What we didn't discuss was the program area, the boundaries of it. So this is an initial draft of what that could look like. I'll send it to you this evening along with the other material that we discussed, so you can look it over. But again, this is a draft, so we'll we'll take public comment on this, and it could be refined and amended further as y'all see fit. But trying to keep in the spirit of identifying our primary, corridors of commerce and retail and commercial, and obviously on an emphasis on kind of the core areas that are in need of revitalization and redevelopment. So take it, digest it, and let me know if you have any thoughts, or I'm happy to take your thoughts down right now as well.
I have a question right off the bat. Are we going to do a different? Are we going to do a structure for it? Would it be advisable to do a structure to where, for lack of better words, our downtown area has a different percentage than on the outer area? Does that make sense?
Well, for me, we'd have to, I guess, see what the incentive would be in terms of the caps, the maximums that we talked about at the last meeting. So I can put some different options on what that could look like. Because the ante essentially has to be upped, I would think, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything?
Okay.
Number 14, discussion concerning consideration of adopting a neighborhood empowerment zone incentive program.
Yes, similarly, again, we talked about the program mechanics and overview, but we didn't provide a tentative area. So this is a draft area of the neighborhood empowerment zone. Again, definitely more of an emphasis on the core kind of traditional neighborhoods of Cleveland, and it's kind of more distressed commercial corridors. So the idea here would be to focus those resources and incentives in these areas for more catalytic change. And this is just overlaid with the big program. So potentially, if you're a business and you're also in the EDC, you can see a lot of benefit from these two programs. Again, I will send it along, and you can digest it and let me know if you have any comments on that as well.
And are you going to have some recommendations on that or some thoughts?
Well, the NEZ, again, this is really a creature of the city council as it affects, fee waiving and property tax reimbursement. It's not a sales tax program. So I'll probably bring it back to you for discussion and familiarization, but we wouldn't take any action on it.
Right. Any questions on number 14? Nope. 15, consider amending the EDC regular meeting calendar for the remainder of the year. What this is basically is we have conflicting dates with our EDC and holidays and everything else. So we're going to do October, November, and December, it looks like.
Yeah, so we're distributing some calendars. October, there's no real holidays. I'll be out of the country on a pre-planned vacation from the 17th through the 28th, and so you have your regular meeting typically on the 28th. If y'all see no reason to change it, that's fine. But if you want maybe a day or two buffer and hold a meeting instead on Wednesday the 30th, but I'll leave that at the pleasure of the board.
So for October, it's kind of that simple. If we want Emilio here, or we feel like we need him here, we will have Danielle. I've already discussed this. We'll have Danielle no matter what for the 28th. Or we can reschedule it for the 30th and have Emilio here also.
And
So do we want him here or not?
And it may allow some time if we had to do anything as far as incentives and stuff with the Blue Group, and it leaves kind of a later option in October for a meeting. But we'll hopefully try to do a special meeting sooner than that.
It's going to be up to Scott Lambert, but hopefully Scott Lambert can get things done where we can do a special meeting prior to the end of October. That's a long time away, Scott Lambert. And then we're ready for you. We're waiting on you. So thoughts on the 28th or 30th?
I'm
That-
fine with the 30th.
Yeah, I'm fine with the 30th.
Sounds like we want Emilio here.
We're gonna come in costume, right?
In costume on the 30th? Oh, that is Halloween, isn't it?
Well, the 31st.
No, 31st, yeah. Yeah, everybody still wants to celebrate it. So yeah, why don't y'all come in costume for that one? Sure. That's all you, Danielle.
For November, the regular meeting would occur normally on the 25th, and Thanksgiving is the 28th. The city observes the 29th as well. I don't know if any board members had travel plans, so we're looking at some different options in the weeks prior.
What about the 26th?
Usually
closer
people
to
travel that week.
Do what? I mean, I'm just giving other options. What
Not everyone has airplanes, and some people got to travel on that day.
Wow.
What about option A on the 14th? That's what he says. That's option A, 14th.
I'm good with option A.
Because option B, I will be out that week.
I have an airplane. I can do any of those days.
John's like, I'll fly back for it. It doesn't matter.
I'm good with the 14th.
Michelle? Chuck? We don't have to ask Alice no more. Heidi's, of course. Tanya?
Yes, I'm fine.
14th it is.
And then lastly, December.
He's going backwards on that.
With Christmas Eve being the 24th, assuming board members might be out on the 23rd. I probably will be, I don't know. But looking at some different options, either the 11th on a Wednesday or the 16th on a Monday.
How's the 16th look for
I
everybody?
can do the 11th. I can't do the 16th.
You can do 11th, can't do 16th.
I could do the 11th.
Michelle?
Yeah, I'm good with the 11th.
Tanya? 11th it is.
I would just recommend a motion accepting all of the changes as presented.
So we need a motion then. If y'all just give me the motion in second, I'll.
I make the motion that we accept the dates that we all agreed upon.
Got a motion by Mike,
I second.
a second by Heidi to change October's meeting from the 28th to the 30th, November's meeting from the 25th to the 14th, and December's meeting from the 23rd to the 11th. That will help whoever's taking the minutes. Any other discussion? All in favor? Motion's approved unanimously. Okay, the city of Cleveland, we're just past 15 obviously. The city of Cleveland Economic Development Corporation reserves the right to adjourn into executive session at any time during this meeting to discuss any item on the agenda as authorized by Texas Government Code sections 551.071, consultation with attorney 551.072, deliberation about real property 551.073, deliberations about gifts and donations, 551.074, personal matters, 551.076, deliberations about security devices, and 551.086, economic development. We are going to be in executive session as of now at 7:35. we are back in session. It went from 7:40 to 8:28. This is not working. No. Hello, hello, hello. It's not working. Oh, okay. There, now it is here. So we went from 7:40 to 8:28. Also, Mike Buckley was not present for executive session, and we had no action that was taken in executive session. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
I second the motion.
I have a motion by Heidi and a second by Tanya. All in favor? Good deal. We are adjourned.